Picture this. The year is 1878. A horse-drawn carriage is traveling down a quiet, dirt road in Tokyo called Kyoizaka. Suddenly, a group of armed assassins ambushes the carriage. They drag out the most powerful man in the Japanese government and strike him down in broad daylight. The assassins proudly surrender to the police right after, claiming they just executed a corrupt, power-hungry dictator who was stealing from the country to line his own pockets. And honestly, the entire nation believes them. People actually cheered. But when government officials finally go to inspect the dead man's estate, fully expecting to find vaults overflowing with stolen gold, they uncover a shocking, baffling secret that completely flips the narrative of this explainer. It's a genuine mystery that absolutely stunned the new government. How could the man who essentially controlled all of Japan's finances, who held the highest authority in the land, have literally no money to his name? He was the mastermind behind the country's rapid modernization, yet his personal safe was completely empty. His house, mortgaged. His family was essentially left entirely without financial support. So if he was the greedy tyrant that his assassins and the public claimed he was, where on earth did all the money go? Well, here is the jaw-dropping answer. Not only did he have zero savings, he was 8,000 yen in debt. Now, to put that into perspective, in the late 19th century, 8,000 yen was an astronomical fortune. The truth was, instead of embezzling state funds, this so-called dictator was secretly taking out massive personal loans and emptying his own pockets to fund public works, build schools, and prop up the government whenever the national treasury ran dry. He essentially bankrupted himself to keep his country afloat, leaving his own family to shoulder a crushing debt after his murder. Okay, let's really dive into this. Look at this portrait of Okubo Toshimichi. Staring out at us in that crisp, imposing European uniform, he looks every bit the cold, untouchable politician. He's known as one of the three great heroes of the movement that overthrew the old samurai system. But for over a century, he was passionately hated by the public. He was viewed as a cold-blooded, emotionless machine. But what you're seeing hides a man carrying unimaginable burdens. A man whose entire life was a masterclass in absolute, unyielding sacrifice. To understand how he became this iron-willed architect, we have to look at where he started. Part 1. Surviving a Ruthless World. Our story rewinds to the final, chaotic days of the samurai era. Before the European uniforms, Okubo was just a low-ranking samurai down in southern Japan. Now, samurai weren't just warriors with swords, they were the ruling class. But Okubo wasn't born into elite wealth. He was incredibly smart, becoming a government official at just 17. But then disaster struck. His father was swept up in a brutal political purge and exiled. Okubo lost his job, and his family was plunged into absolute starving poverty. They were so poor that he actually had to rely on his childhood best friend, a boy named Saigo Takamori, just to get a share of rice to survive. Take a look at these original pages from his personal diary. Notice those meticulous, beautiful, elegant brushstrokes. These pages are basically a visual metaphor for how Okubo survived those incredibly dark years. He didn't panic or despair. Instead, he became incredibly disciplined, solitary, and intensely calculated. He learned the hard way that the world of samurai politics was completely ruthless. If you didn't have power, your family literally starved. And that realization, it fundamentally changed him. To climb out of poverty and save his family, Okubo realized he had to do the unthinkable. He had to kill his heart. He desperately needed the favor of the new lord of his region, a man Okubo actually despised. But Okubo discovered that this lord loved the traditional board game Go. So Okubo dedicated himself to mastering the game, purposefully arranging to play with the Lord. He used those quiet moments across the game board to slowly whisper his political ideas and gain influence. He buried his pride and his hatred to secure the power he needed. He became an absolute master of controlling his own emotions. Part 2. The Shock of Iron. Okubo's calculated brilliance paid off big time. He helped orchestrate one of the greatest political coups in history, overthrowing the shogun, the military dictator who had ruled Japan for over 250 years. Okubo and his allies restored the emperor to power and established a brand new government. But just when they thought the hard part was over, Okubo joined a massive diplomatic journey around the globe. And what he saw out there utterly terrified him. This journey was called the Iwakura Mission. From 1871 to 1873, Okubo and other top leaders toured the United States and Europe. They went hoping to renegotiate some unfair treaties, but they were met with a terrifying reality check. Okubo walked through the thundering, smoke-filled factories of Britain and rode on high-speed American trains. He realized in a heartbeat that Japan, with its wooden castles and men fighting with swords, was hopelessly outclassed. If they didn't catch up immediately, they wouldn't just be ignored, they would be conquered and colonized by Western empires, just like so many of their neighbors in Asia. So, the crucial point is right here. Okubo realized that the true power of the West wasn't just in their guns, it was in their heavy industry. He called it the civilization of iron and coal. He understood that the absolute only way to protect Japan was to radically, painfully, and instantly transform it into a modern industrial machine. There was no time for slow, gentle, polite changes. He had to tear down the old Japan to build a new one, no matter who he angered in the process. Part 3. Forging a Modern Nation. Returning to Japan, Okubo took the reins as the Minister of Home Affairs. He effectively became the most powerful man in the country, and he turned himself into the engine of a relentless, roaring machine of progress. He knew people would hate the changes, but he truly believed someone had to force the country forward if it wanted to survive. At breakneck speed, Okubo forced through massive, sweeping reforms. First, he abolished the ancient samurai domains, stripping power from the regional lords and creating a centralized government. Next, he overhauled the entire tax system, demanding taxes in cash rather than bags of rice, which totally infuriated farmers but finally stabilized the national budget. Finally, he aggressively pushed for industrialization, pouring money into government-run factories, railways, and shipyards. He was literally ripping the Band-Aid off a centuries-old society. And here's the thing, he didn't just order these painful changes from a comfortable desk. When the government ran out of money to build an agricultural school in Tokyo to teach Western farming methods, Okubo quietly reached into his own pockets. He personally donated 5,400 yen, which is the equivalent of well over $1 million today. He demanded absolutely no praise for it. That school, by the way, eventually became the highly prestigious University of Tokyo's Faculty of Agriculture. His dedication to building the nation's future was absolute, even if it meant draining his own life savings. Part 4. Friends turned bitter enemies. This relentless speed came at a devastating personal cost. By destroying the samurai system, Okubo was destroying the identity of the very warriors who had fought to put him in power. And the leader of those disgruntled samurai? It was none other than Saigo Takamori, the beloved hero of the revolution and Okubo's childhood best friend, the exact same boy who had shared his rice when Okubo's family was starving. And this brilliantly illustrates the tragic ideological split between the two heroes. Saigo represented the soul, the emotion, and the deep pride of the traditional samurai class. He actually proposed a reckless plan to provoke a war with Korea, just to give the unemployed samurai a purpose and an honorable death. But Okubo, having seen the massive military might of the West, knew a foreign war would immediately bankrupt Japan and invite a Western invasion. He bluntly crushed Saigo's plan, arguing that internal industry and basic survival had to come before samurai honor. The debate was incredibly fierce, and it ended with Saigo resigning in disgust and returning to the south. The tension finally boiled over in 1877 into a massive civil war known as the Satsuma Rebellion. Saigo, pushed by his fiercely loyal followers, led an army of furious samurai against the new central government. Okubo was faced with a horrifying choice: allow the country he was trying to build to be torn apart, or crush his oldest friend. True to the vow of his youth, Okubo killed his heart. As the head of the government, he ruthlessly deployed the new, modern, conscripted national army to annihilate Saigo's rebel samurai. Saigo ultimately took his own life on the battlefield. Okubo had saved Japan, for sure, but he had ordered the death of a man he loved like a brother. Part 5. The Architect's Ultimate Sacrifice. Which brings us right back to that ambush in 1878. Just 8 months after Saigo's tragic death, former samurai seeking revenge ambushed Okubo's carriage. The public, who deeply revered the passionate, traditional Saigo, actually cheered Okubo's assassination. They saw a cold, heartless dictator who had betrayed his best friend and oppressed the people with taxes and radical changes. But the true cost of his leadership was hidden safely behind closed doors. Now, what's really interesting here is how this hidden reality shatters everything his enemies thought about him. In private, the Iron Dictator was a remarkably gentle and doting father to his 9 children. He spent his very rare moments of free time playing with them, completely shedding that imposing persona. We know now that he left his family with nothing but a mortgaged home and massive debt because he gave all his wealth to the state. And when news of Saigo's death had reached him a year earlier, the man who supposedly killed his heart reportedly broke down, weeping uncontrollably and pacing his home in deep grief. He even carried a letter from Saigo in his pocket on the very day he was assassinated. Look at this final document from his life's records. It represents a legacy of total, unwavering devotion. Okubo Toshimichi deliberately absorbed the hatred of an entire nation so that the nation itself could survive. He knew that for Japan to avoid becoming a colony, someone had to do the dirty work. Someone had to make the ruthless choices, build the factories, and play the villain. He sacrificed his wealth, his reputation, his best friend, and ultimately his own life, just to draw the blueprint of a modern nation. So, we leave you with this to ponder. When a nation is on the absolute brink of destruction, what kind of leader does it really need? Was Okubo Toshimichi a cold-blooded tyrant who crushed tradition for power? Or was he the ultimate tragic hero, the only man brave enough to carry the agonizing weight of progress? History isn't just black and white. It's forged in iron, blood, and heartbreaking sacrifice. Thanks for exploring this incredible chapter with us. Let this story change the way you look at leadership.